Hello and welcome to the Happy, Healthy, Strong podcast. This is a podcast dedicated to helping you live a happier, healthier, and stronger life. Building a life that you love starts with you owning your health and intentionally creating the best version of yourself. So if you're looking to better understand how proper nutrition, daily movement, mindset work, and strength training can help you create a life full of happiness and health, then you are in the right place. I generally hope that the tips, tricks, and information that we share will be the catalyst for change. I'm your host, Adam Lane. It's time to dive in. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Happy, Healthy, Strong podcast. I'm your host, Adam Lane. With me today from beautiful, sunny Charlotte, North Carolina, Mr. Brandon Cullen. Brandon, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Brandon, this is exciting. Brandon, you're the CCO, Chief Concept Officer of Metabolic, and also run your own podcast, Playing Guilty. Brandon, for the tens of people that listen to this show, though, tell these people who you are and why you're such a big deal.
I don't know if big deal is the right word, but my name is Brandon Cullen. I am one of the co-founders and the chief concept officer of a fitness franchise. Name is Metabolic, and we specialize in strength and conditioning. Seem to do real well in that kind of 25 to 50-year-old pocket. And we kind of target more of the high performers. So that would be our niche. But obviously there's outliers even within that population, under 25, over 50. And, not everybody is a fire breather. So, but if you had to pick of where we seem to thrive and who we tend to target, it would be that 25 to 50-year-old high performer.
There we go. Brandon, give us the origin story here in the way of, because we kind of came similar. You were a little ahead of us, but then you were early on CrossFit. Played some professional hockey, like people do. Fell into some CrossFit and morphed into what you guys are right now. Give a little background, and then I want to dive more into what Metabolic is.
Yeah. So a lifetime ago, tried professional hockey and did good enough. Exposed me. I was a Canadian kid, got to the States because of that beautiful sport, had a career ending concussion kind of at the height of my career. And fitness was just, it was the thing in my game, right? So obviously I was a good enough player, but there's a lot of great players, a lot better than me. And fitness was the one thing I could control. So I got kind of obsessed with it in my late teens, early 20s. So when my career was over, I stumbled upon CrossFit kind of in my last few years training. I was boxing in downtown Buffalo, and there was a guy in the corner doing these crazy workouts, and he used to put me through what was called a finisher. And yeah, at the end of, say, 60 minutes of sparring, I'd get ripped through some painful AMRAP. And I think that led me down probably the exact same path of you, where you found the website, you got obsessed with the literature, the knowledge, the methodology. It hadn't really hit pop culture. There was opportunity. It was different. It was disruptive. So me and my co-founder, Kirk DeWall, we jumped all in. We were involved in 2 gyms. So we worked at one and then opened our own as a spin-off of that original one. And the quickest way I think I could explain it is we saw it go from a very targeted high-level program with very at that point, like high-level coaching, like the best of the best. That's what I would have considered it in those mid 2000s to late 2000s. And then it hit pop culture, and it became a machine that I don't believe they could have even stopped. I know a lot of people have opinions on how they would have made it safer, and it's easy for us all to say that now, but I was in the middle of it watching this thing take off across the world. And it got to a place where, quite simply, my partner and I said, listen, I think this is best for people at a specific point in their life, maybe 20 to 35. You haven't taken on any major injuries. You still have those competitive juices, and you want to see what you can do with your physicality. But then, we said, well, listen, we want fitness as a career. We want fitness as a life. As young 30-year-olds, what would we like to do into our 50s? And that became a lot of experimentation that one day became a thing called Metabolic. And we've been fine tweaking that model for about 12 to 15 years now. And I mean, that's the short story, even though it sounded a little bit long-winded.
Yeah, no, I think it's fantastic. So many similarities in the sense of like we ran with the CrossFit thing, and early on it was, we were younger. The coaching staff was younger. Heather and I were younger. We brought in people that were younger and said, hey, we're going to do blank workout. And some people loved getting absolutely annihilated, and I loved it. Like it was a lot of fun for me. I was doing the triathlon thing at a pretty high level at that point. And every WOD ended up being a try for me. Like, hey, we're going to just attack this, it's kettlebell swings, pull-ups, and a 400-meter run. Well, it's a triathlon. You're going to do 3 rounds of that. Like, here we go. And I agree with you. I mean, that works, and you feel accomplished. A lot of good things, can happen from that. However, then you do hit an age where you might need something a little bit more structured. Possibly, we could argue safety. I don't know. Safety is always a tough thing to argue.
It is a tough one to argue because it can be done well, right? It can be done well. Yeah,
it can. But then you're right. It hits pop culture. Coaching is a thing. They used to have the creme de la creme of coaches who, had experience and stuff. And then it's not a bad weekend certification. Don't get me wrong. It's, I'd say, one of the better certifications. You definitely learn some things, and and you do things, and they're very structured, and written tests and stuff. And they've raised their standards now through the years. All good, but you hit a point where we might have to change what we're doing here. You guys changed to this Metabolic model of timed strength training. Describe that for our people that can't wrap their head around it.
I'll give you where the light bulb went off for me. I remember in our CrossFit gym, as we were trying to grow membership, and you know what, whether people like to admit it or not, the barbell scares some people, right? So we started on weekends running what we called conditioning classes. And essentially what we did was we paired people up and we created an amount of work we wanted them to accomplish together. So there's a little bit of camaraderie. There was nothing you were trying to win because everyone was on a clock and you were just trying to accomplish work together. We also started sprinkling in things that weren't part of the methodology. So at that point, even like heavy carries was not a big thing. Foot speed, lateral movement, jumping and landing correctly, and stuff like that. And the light bulb went off because all of a sudden our Saturdays and Sundays were like busier than the Monday through Fridays. We were reaching a whole different group of people. And they were people that they didn't just find us. They finally came to us. They were training themselves in their own discipline, whether it be triathletes, yogis, cyclists, runners, but for whatever reason, the weekend made sense for them. So that was like light bulb number one. And I think that was very like barbell heavy thinking, like, I wonder if this is the thing we gotta kind of take a look at. And then the second thing was, I remember this one very specific client, and classic story, right? She was in her early 40s. Her two children had finally just went off to school. So like past the daycare component where they're actually in school for a whole day. So she has some time back now. And she had lost herself through motherhood and wanted to reclaim. She wanted to find herself again, right? She wanted to be empowered, and pretty brave, right? To step into a CrossFit gym as how I'm going to rebuild myself. And for the next year, as supportive as the community can be, me included, I remember clapping this woman through the finish line last every single day. And, I stepped back one day and said, this is probably a person that doesn't want a spotlight on her at all. And even though we're being supportive, we're essentially saying, we love you, but good job being last again. Or maybe that's how she received it. And maybe she didn't, but it was the thing that made me start thinking, like, is this really, what needs to happen to get somebody fit? Let's not even think about the technicality of the sport of fitness, CrossFit. So whether it be Olympic weightlifting, high level gymnastics, and just all and intensity, right? So to sum up how we started stringing this together, you remove a barbell, you focus on baseline movement patterns, and you start and stop everybody at the same point, where you could have Mr. Olympia in class and this same woman, and they're going to start and stop at the exact same time. Because it's based on time, you don't have to associate an RX weight or anything. You get a weight that they feel comfortable with, and you ask them to move it well for whatever time period you have designated. And it doesn't have to get that complicated, right? If we're doing 60 seconds on, 60 seconds off, and you've dropped the weight 4 times in that 67, you're probably going a little bit too heavy. And if you have just ripped through 60 reps in 60 seconds, we probably can load you a little bit better. That's where it started, man. And as common sense as that sounds, you now can meet an individual on that given day, and you can say, today's an 80% effort, get as much out of this 2 minutes as possible. Today is a 90-second effort, get as much out of these 30 seconds as possible. And today we're going to go all out. So we're going to go 15 seconds on, 15 seconds off. Let's go as heavy as you can, maintain proper mechanics, but push yourself today. And we found that you could safely apply that to a much larger population than we were able to before.
And how simple having it be, whatever. What are the two, gosh, your time restricted training versus your work restricted. I forget the actual CrossFit terms here, but no, similar thing. When I coached track and field, we would integrate, like, and this was a light bulb moment because nobody in distance running, because I coached track and cross country, like, nobody was squatting heavy. Nobody was deadlifting. Like, we just had, if you had a good kid, they were good naturally and you got lucky. And you just need to train the crap out of them and hope they don't get hurt. The idea of actual doing real strength training for this kid that's running a 5K, blowing people's heads. But like, we started integrating because I'm like, because I started doing it myself. Just, hey, I'm doing some heavy squats for me relative to whatever that is. And then mixed in some mixed modal, AMRAP-y training of something, whatever. And I watched my triathlon times just tick way down. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I'm running the fastest, 3 mile I ever have. And I'm training less. I'm putting in less miles. Holy cow, everything feels better. I feel stronger. I'm picking them up, putting them down. We started doing this with our track and field cross country kids. Well, I got 30 kids trying to do a workout, to have them all do the same thing at the same time off the clock versus, hey, we're going to do this and then this and then this and then this, and we're going to hit 3 rounds, set, go. And like, all of a sudden kids are all over the place, and some kids are doing pull-ups here and they're doing kettlebell swings here, and kids are walking in front of each other. So I'm like, somebody's going to die. But if we're like, hey, for this 60 seconds, we're all doing blank. Great. 30-second transition. Now for this 60 seconds, we're doing, it was just easier to control, and just connecting it to like the whatever high school gym versus the actual like private gym. It, a lot of similarities. It just makes sense. And man, I think we've all had those people that like, good job, Sharon, you're doing great, and it's like that pity clap where it's nice to have the support, but when does that get old? Like,
yeah, there could be a better way to do this for sure. Yeah, 100%. There's a lot of ways to do community, right? Without burying people.
Talk more. So when we say, because I know in our gym, it's written nice and big, the strength gym, written up, which I absolutely love. Your guys' tagline there, in the way of strength training. Because I think when people say, oh, I'm interval training, they think cardio. Not that cardio is not important, but you guys are known as the strength gym. How do you make that happen?
Yeah, cardio is funny, right? Because it just means your heart's beating fast and you're breathing. Like if I put you on under a barbell for a set of 20 back squats at the right weight, I promise you're going to get some cardio out of that, right? But yeah, I think what you're saying is, I'm always delicate with this, but educating the uneducated consumer is an ongoing battle. And that is not saying a dumb consumer. That's saying, this person didn't go to school for exercise science. And unfortunately, their knowledge base is Instagram, with a lot of influencers that don't know what they're talking about. Like that's the world we kind of live in. So yeah, to dumb it down, interval, we apply strength bias movements and weight to time domains. And when you start getting into the, the beauty and the art of program design, you need to have enough experience to know if you are using a kettlebell swing as your strength bias movement and you're going to apply it to time, at what point does that specific movement start to break down when you cross a threshold of time? We have found that is somewhere for the average athlete is about 30 seconds. And if you are kind of a top tier athlete, you may be able to get it up to 40, 45 seconds. If you are doing the movement for what it's asking of you, meaning you have a powerful hinge, an explosive drive, you are finishing at the top of that movement with everything in your body engaged. You're essentially in a vertical plank. Everything is tight. Now, the flip of it, to go back to say the sport of fitness, I've done workouts in CrossFit days that it was like 100 kettlebell swings for time. Now, if I am competing for a sport, I'm going to try to create as less tension in my body as possible so I can last longer to win my sport. So there's trade-offs. If you were to do 100 kettlebell swings, a more appropriate way to maybe do that would be 10 swings at a time at full tension and velocity, maybe 5 deep breaths in between, and let's get 10 sets of 10, right? So I think the reality is, Adam, is none of this is exactly right or wrong. If I'm teaching to win the sport of fitness, I'm teaching you how to manipulate your body to last and to do it as fast as possible. If I'm teaching you how to swing a kettlebell, reps don't really matter to me. I want to pick the right weight and the right time that you can perform this movement beautifully. And if the time's too much, we take the time down. And if the weight's too much, we take the time down, or we take the weight down. But it's just, in my opinion, and when I say this, I'm not being ignorant, I think it's a more intelligent way to train someone for the long haul.
To look at your more mainstream franchise stuff now, your Orange Theories and your F45s, and not to poke, but I don't. Hey, we have strength training. And now we have strength training with these small little kettlebells that you might swing for longer than that time domain that you just listed off there. And it's not, like you said, it's not bad. It's just, if you're trying to get stronger, if your strength is the goal, hey, I don't know if that's the right necessary direction to go to. I'd fight that, but it to make it fit within the training, within the Orange Theory training of whatever.
Or within the trend, whatever's popular, right? Like strength is a sexy word right now. And I mean, in our world, let's call it where we came from, the same thing happened with functional fitness. What does that even mean anymore? Honestly, what does functional fitness mean anymore? Everyone's doing functional fitness, right? So it's funny, just like we ride these waves. Yeah. I mean, and you've been in it as long as I have. Like it is, I don't know if there's a more cyclical industry than fitness. Maybe music, like things come and go, things get popular, new versions of an old thing is made popular again. But here's what I'll say, right? It still, even though I am extremely biased and think we are great at what we do, the best workout is still the one that gets you out of bed 4 to 5 days a week and gets you motivated to move. So if that is F45, awesome. Go to your F45. That's Pure Bar. Fantastic. If that is rucking, I don't care what it is. Like, you got to find something that you enjoy enough. That's the most important thing. And you know what? I think if you try out what we do and you value, structure and accountability, I think we're a good option. But anything that gets you moving is going to be the best thing for you. So I just encourage people to, I actually encourage people to shop around until you find that thing. And maybe honestly, that is just a community. Maybe it's not even the best workout. It's just the thing. It's your third place that gets you out of the house.
I think it's interesting how people's, as they mature in life too, like those things will change. We've had distance runners that have turned into ultra distance runners who have turned into ruckers because that has banged up their body too much, who used to love the high intense, interval stuff to now they like the more, hey, give me sets and reps of some strength work and let me get through this. And, if you want me to hit some bike sprints at the end of the day, okay, sounds good. It's just funny how people change as, they mature.
I mean, listen, you just defined me. I mean, I did have a pretty bad traumatic brain injury that kind of dictates how I train, but like, I was similar to you, triathlons, adventure races, CrossFit competition. I used to like to find the event that could break me and see if I could succeed. Now I strength train 3 days a week at a very controlled pace and a very scripted protocol, and ruck 2 days a week. That is me. That is me at 44 years old, and life is good. I'm fine with it.
Well, I think it's really hard for people to. I mean, you were, let's be clear, much more successful in your, sporting career than what I was. But like, you have that standard for yourself, and then all of a sudden you do get older, and you kind of get a little lost in what should be happening. Because if I, and maybe you're in the same boat here. If we did those workouts that we did when we were 20 something, I can do them. I could physically do them. I would die the next few days. Like, recovery, I'm amazed with just how I push it a little bit. Oh, I'm feeling good on a day. I get after it a little bit more than normal. And the next day I pay for it. And it's just like, holy cow.
That's a good point. My training protocol, my exertion I put into work, my balancing stress levels in between like healthy stimulus and bad, whatever I am trying to do today is so I'm not crippled tomorrow and can do a little bit of that tomorrow too. Anything that's going to push me past that point, I'm really not chasing these days.
Well, and that's what I think I've appreciated with every metabolic workout that I've done. I feel like it's the appropriate amount of volume that's given. And really, like you said, when it comes down to the time thing, if you pick, you guys are laned out and whatnot, and, the black lane versus the gray lane's a little bit lighter, so on a day, if I were to decide to go gray lane, I might get a couple more reps in. Okay. Versus in the black lane, it's a little heavier, might get a few less reps in, but that be fine. And honestly, it not over, it probably not kill me a little bit. There are days where I need to go a little lighter and a little faster, and there are days where I should go a little heavier and a little slower, and both are good. But
well,
just not overdoing it.
Example, Kirk and I, my co-founder, we were in Vegas for kind of the Super Bowl of fitness conferences last week, HFA, and it's Vegas. So I'll just kind of sum it up like that. And I texted him Saturday, which we were home for a day. I was like, how tired are you, man? And he talked about the workout he got in. And so for him, he had to get up and kind of sweat it out. And for me, I just had to get back to even and drink some water. Like, so whatever works for you, right? You just gotta ebb and flow and kind of know yourself. And that's the fun thing about fitness. I think you should cycle in and out of stuff. I really do. And I think if you, one thing I will say though, I do think strength as your base allows you to try other things. So if you want to, get creative with, if you want to be, try running, maybe get your first half in or 10K, or, you're feeling tight. You're like, I'm going to get into yoga. I do believe wherever you want to go try other things, that having a good foundation in strength training will allow you to do that much better.
Talk about, because the other thing I really appreciate with the metabolic programming specifically, one, the amount of volume. Again, you get in, you get out. I feel it the next day, but I'm not crushed. Things are good. I also love, and you mentioned it earlier, but like the lateral movement, frontal plane stuff that often in traditional training, and this made me look, very reflective at our training, and then a rotational component, little transverse plane, that it's really easy to leave out. And you go back. I went back to like programming from years ago, and it's sagittal plane, sagittal plane, sagittal plane, sagittal plane, sagittal plane, sagittal plane. Oh, weird. Sarah has back issues. That's odd, and just, I think people don't understand that, so much of your boot campy movements, or even a lot of your traditional CrossFit stuff is in this one movement pattern. And I love how you guys integrate frontal plane work, transverse plane work. And I feel like it brings balance to the body. Which is really like how I think an athlete, and how we train our athletes to keep them healthy.
Well, that's what I was going to say. When you see like an athlete move versus say like a traditional gym goer, right? And people always think, oh, he's just a natural athlete. And that very well could be true, right? But as you train an athlete, I do believe there are some big movers that you do. Like I think especially if you're a contact athlete, I think a basic dead, a basic squat, a press or bench, and a power clean helps build a good foundation. But if you notice, sports are played on 1 foot most of the time. So like outside of that primary lift, spending a lot of time with single arm or single leg movements, that's why you see athletes move like athletes. So, another lazy advertising campaign is we train everyday people like athletes. Like how many times we've used that, right? But we actually really do. Like you're going to spend time on one leg. And I'm trying, and I'm trying to actually dumb down some very technical language so people can understand what I'm saying here. But like, it is good to use split stances. It is good to do single arm movements. It is good to move straight up and down and straight forward, but it's even better to change those angles side to side and approach things unilaterally. You know what I mean? Like these things are important. So it's why I know we'll get there one day, but if your fitness program is something that comes from an algorithm that arrives on a TV, I can promise you it's not the best way to attack something. To design a workout correctly for a big population takes a lot of consideration. Unfortunately, AI just isn't there yet. I'm sure we'll be there soon. It's just not there yet.
There's so many moving pieces. Well, and then what always gets me with the group program too is that, because I write ours here, and I put a ton of time into it every week. And I'm you and Kirk do yours together. I sit in a room by myself and just talk to myself. Be like, oh, is that a good idea? No, yes, maybe. More of this. Let's put this, a little twist here. Or hey, whatever we run little 4-week cycles and whatnot. But it's always frustrating then too, especially with the group program, because somebody could come Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and somebody else come Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. And now all of a sudden we're getting some different training going on. And one day might be a little bit more upper half, one might be a little lower half. And so, no, I totally agree. It's so many moving pieces,
but that's a challenge of group training, right? And I think as long as you're honest I run group fitness. If I'm training Adam to peak for his triathlon, that's a very different program than group fitness. You may use group fitness to round yourself out as an athlete and you do it in a scaled down nature, but you'd want to hammer down the primary skills of the sport of the event you were trying to do. And you want to do that early in the day and early in the week before you fatigue. We're training everyday people that, it's like the best hour of their day, that whatever that cliche, or that it might even be a podcast. I don't know what it is, but you know what I mean, right? Like a lot of these people are, like you said, busy parents, busy people, stressed. They maybe can find an hour a day, 3 to 4 days a week. And there's a lot of components of that third place, a community. It's the same dynamic people would get from going to church, but you layer some movement and some sweat on that, right? So there's a lot of good components of us providing this group fitness space, even though it might not be the ideal program for the athlete peaking for their sport. Two different things. Yeah.
We're about the same age here. This, we're in the peak of our 40s here, just crushing it. If you're to speak to people not in the fitness space, if these are, our listeners who are just churning for a nugget here, when it comes to strength training specifically, what is one big nugget that you would want somebody in your shoes who doesn't own a, fitness company, who works at Bank of America, but they're trying to be healthier, stronger for their family, for their life? What's one big deal that you think people miss but need to understand?
I think they overcomplicate it, whether it be fitness, health, nutrition, right? I think if we happen to be in your market, we're a good option for a strength training program. But if I had to focus on some general aspects of health and wellness, do less, but do it often, right? So, and I have to make some assumptions here. Let's pretend someone is untrained or is trained. I can tell you that if you're kind of coming into this with no background and you're just trying to create a base for you to build on, it's kind of funny. I've been looking at this one way, and I've been working on a paper that I kind of want to put out there. I almost believe that the way you train a 16-year-old till they're about 25 gives you the right to play from 25 to 35, 40. But I think once you hit 40, you got to get back to being 16 years old. And I think those are some very fundamental lifts. So you could train 3 days a week. And on those 3 days, I'm being honest, if you control the volume, you could squat, you could dead, and you could press, and you could mix in any kind of interval-based cardiovascular sprints, and you would be ahead of 90% of the population. And if you had the time and could find, now I'm keeping it this basic, 2 days a week to be outside in nature, walking for 90 minutes, you're in an unbelievable place with never coming to a Metabolic, probably never visiting you, Adam. And it may require seeing a personal trainer to understand those 3 lifts. But once you have that, you could follow a very basic starting strength kind of program, 5-3-1. You could 5x5 everything. You could 3x10 everything. But I'm a big believer in less variety and more consistency. And I know some people, that can be boring, but for me, I find that level of structure almost like meditative in a weird way. Like you quietly disappear underneath the bar, underneath the dumbbell, or underneath the kettlebell by yourself and focus on incremental changes where every 2 weeks bump your upper body movements by 5 pounds and bump your lower body by 10. In 12 weeks, if you hit a roadblock, don't bump that week. You don't really have to overthink this fitness thing. We just got to focus on big movers, meaning, things that take your body through big ranges of motion, and also keeping moving. So LSD, long, slow distance stuff like rucking or walking. And if that can happen outdoors, even better.
I think so. We fought this. I'm assuming you did too. Back at during our little transition from previous CrossFit to now no longer CrossFit, the variety piece. Oh, this is boring. Oh, this is we haven't done blah 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 in a long time. Can we do more blah blah blah? And it's like, yeah, but let's be clear. We're doing more lunges. We're not good at lunges. We need to do more lunges. Let's do some good lunges. And it's interesting because we on the youth side of the gym, there's even more structure on that side, because it's not group class. Kids are kind of individually programmed based off how they scan and whatnot. And given a program, we go old school with sheets and whatnot. We have just simple, but many different options depending on where the kid's at within their little life cycle of training. So I think we have 42 different directions kids can go. Almost like a choose your own adventure type thing, except we choose, not them. But the kids never complain. It's so funny. They never complain. They're like, oh, more squatting? No, they've never said that. They just do it. Where it is interesting within the adult world that sometimes like I must be entertained and I want to do something completely different. And to a little bit of, dare I say, variety, but like progression where and I think people get that confused. And you kind of said that earlier. Like we can progress it. We can add a little weight. We can add a little weight. We can add a little weight. Is not always. It can be so simple, and I can't disagree with you on that. It's simple. This should be very simple for people. Not easy, but simple.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. No, and you know what, too? I think that's why if someone listening to this says, I want to get into this, give yourself 12 weeks to be empowered by those incremental gains. Like if you are new to this, you will be shocked how quick a back squat or deadlift will go up. You'll be shocked at the weight, and that can get addicting, right? And you start feeling better. You're walking taller. You're confident. Clothes are fitting better. But like nothing happens overnight. Now, we're giving people options, right? Which is a great thing. Like this is what we're doing. We're giving people options. You mentioned F45, and I'm here to not punch down either, right? Because I could sell their model probably easier than I could sell Metabolic. We never did the same workout twice. We have 5,000 movements in our database. It's motivating nature and this, that. And guess what? I can tell you there are so many people that need that, and that's completely fine. But if you happen to come across this podcast and you're sitting there, you're like, you know what? I'm looking to do something different. Sorry, I just swore. Give it a go. Get basic. Go back to being 16 years old. And if you were never 16 years old, go find a coach that would have helped your 16-year-old or your 16-year-old self and just learn the fundamental movements. And honestly, at this point, you could throw those things into ChatGPT and say, give me a baseline starting strength program with 6-week cycles, minimal incremental gains, and it'll spit you something out. But we're just providing options. So it's not to say that at a period in someone's busy life that F45 actually just does make sense. But maybe you're me and you today, mid-40s, and you found yourself when you can control a little bit of your schedule, and you're like, I want to try something different. Well, give strength a go. I promise it usually works pretty well.
I think it's funny. I have a friend. We've been buddies since jiu-jitsu for a long time ago, and he's always been kind of a bigger guy. He's had a couple injury things, blah blah blah. I haven't been pushy with it, but hey, we got a gym, bud. If you ever want to, And finally, after years, we get connected. I post some stupid workout video of me on Instagram because that's what the people want, Brandon. They want to see me working out. Instagram screaming for. And so finally he's like, dude, I've been watching you work out. I got to come in. Da, 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 da. And I hooked him up with, our GM coach, Matt, and just Matt's not doing anything radical with him. He's doing a great job, phenomenal job. But everything that we just said, just basic stuff. And he's texting me last week going, dude, I forgot what he pulled on the deadlift. And he was thrilled out of his mind that this middle-aged 45, 46-year-old guy, just pulled, I forgot, 405, 445, whatever it was. He was thrilled out of his mind. Because there used to be that strength, and then parenting happened and jobs happening and just things are falling into place for him. Like he's starting to ruck, just things, but it's basic stuff. And I do think that people get so confused with all the options that there could be when you could just keep it simple and then, watch you get better at the stuff that you actually focus on.
Yeah. They're not set up to succeed today. We are, it's just information overload, no matter, even if you're a person that's cautious on information, which I kind of try to be, it's still all in your face. So, hopefully, so this hits someone and it allows them, to try something different. But yeah, it's I wonder if we are approaching like a tipping point for a lot of things. I read something the other day that the ultimate flex for millennials now is going back to flip phones. Like it's no longer cool to have awesome. All the information. And I'm like, good. Like I almost like look at it like why vinyl records made a resurgence because of the Spotify and Apple Music. Like everything always comes back. And I wonder, I am seeing like big box gyms getting good again. I think the appropriate technology could be really cool. Like I've looked at some technology. Imagine this, Adam, where you show up to call it a leg press, just to prove my point. And it's able to geolocate your body somehow with either a device or your phone. And it will just quickly show you the reps that you did last week and make those incremental jumps for you. Like, I think that's the smart way technology could take us forward, where it's just a quick little helping you versus like taking over the process. But I do see there's an opportunity for more structured programs moving forward, and kind of like almost like a return to the heart of strength training. I can see that coming. Yeah, me too. I mean, I'm playing around with it on my own. So I've been having fun just experimenting with stuff I haven't used in years, even barbells, like messing around with them and just seeing how they feel. And, if I'd approach them differently right now. I mean, you have to stay on top of things if you want to keep program designing for an emerging franchise concept. So part of the stuff that we do behind the scenes is play. We play around, but we also did earn the right with some very structured strength training in our late teens and early 20s, that now you can mess around with some creative concepts. Yeah.
That's one of my biggest hangups with not only adults, but even more so kids programming, where I'll see, and whatever, I probably can't judge this, but a short little Instagram clip of some 15-year-old kid doing a movement that you'd see, Myles Garrett do. And it's just like, is this like, can he do a solid, body weight back squat? Because if the answer is no, I don't know if he's got any business of hitting this like curtsy squat lunge, hold with the barbell and a landmine, across, kind of Zercher carry. Not a bad movement. It's not bad, but like, it looks like if the door were to crack open, the kid would get sucked out of it, because, he's that immature of a kid. And it's like, oh, is that really the right thing for this person?
Remember I talked about like earning the right. So I I had a personal trainer when I was 16 because I was getting ready to make a big jump in hockey where I would have played with 17 to 21-year-olds, right? And 16, I was still a boy. Like I wasn't like a fast maturing kid. Like I was still a boy about to play with some men. So I was lucky enough to train with a man straight out of college. I guess he was a kid at the time, but I always looked at him as a man. And he put me on a football kind of training program and just kind of tweaked the time domains for hockey. So football being 0 to 15 seconds and hockey being 0 to 45. So you just kind of stretch those out. And he was knowledgeable enough to like make these energy system tweaks. But I remember my first summer, I trained Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I did high pulls because I wasn't talented to learn how to clean yet. So I didn't even know what these things were, but I can talk about them now. So high pulls were my first lift, speed lift, right? Back squat, bench, deadlift, and dead hang pull-ups. That was my training program for a year, three days a week. That's all I did. And they were, and I think I did it almost for 2 years. And that was Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then I would do hill sprints on Tuesday and Thursday. That was my whole workout. After 2 years of earning the right with these lifts, did he split them into a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, where then cleans were introduced, push presses were introduced. But I mean, this guy built me over like a 2 to 5 year period. And that's why when CrossFit surfaced when I was 26, okay, let's play around with this stuff. I know all these lifts. But then you think of the person, like you said, from the couch to CrossFit, that's not the best recipe. Like it takes time to get there to experiment. Now, to go back to my original point, what a great training program for that 45-year-old right now. Some appropriate hill sprints on your off days. We'll do some high pulls, some bench, squat and a dead. 3 days a week, call it a day. Probably doing pretty good, right?
Yeah. And to be consistent with that. And just to bring up your point, whatever program you want to do is great as long as you're consistent with it. The program that doesn't work is the one that you don't go, and show up to. And
yeah. And by the way, too, your hill sprint doesn't need to look like your 16-year-old self. It just has to be a hill. It's fine. It's fantastic, right? But the first thing you said, which I would like anyone who happens to hear this, there is more common sense that can be applied. And even though you're not an exercise science person, you should be able to hear this and say, well, I don't really have to be cartwheeling myself through an F45 to get a workout, right? Like I can do some of these simple things and get stronger. The answer is yes. You can do a lot with consistency, and less is more is a real thing.
Brendan, I really appreciate your time. What I miss? What is one thing you would have liked me to ask you that I didn't? What'd I screw up here?
I thought it was pretty good, man.
Solved all the world's problems.
Yeah, no, I think, any of your members that are begging you for more variety, hopefully this lands with them. Before you came a business partner of mine, we have to do our own due diligence, right? And I remember telling you on one of our first calls, I can tell you're doing a real kick-ass job at your gym. And, if I think, you'd be a good partner of ours if this makes sense. So for any people that are, training with Adam and company, you're in good hands. So put your trust in them. And I promise you will probably get a pretty damn good outcome.
And I appreciate the shameless plug.
That's true, man. No, I've always respected what you've done from afar. We met didn't we meet at that random Stu's conference years and years and years ago?
Pre-COVID. It was a glorious time.
Yeah. So we've been connected for a minute now, and I pay attention. So always respect what you're doing in your own neighborhood for sure.
Well, and obviously you guys the same thing, hence our partnership. And like, I love everything we talked about here, friends, listeners, like it aligns. Like, and again, I don't care if you're at a Metabolic, you know, if you're at Little Rockford, Illinois, Oak Strength, like there's, you know, it's labeled differently and the colors are different, but like in essence, the fundamentals and keeping things simple, you know, and being consistent is really all it takes. And it's simple. It's not easy, but it's pretty gosh darn simple.
Oh, that's right. I agree.
Brandon, people want to follow you and all the great things you're doing and Metabolic is doing. Where do they go?
So I have kind of isolated myself to LinkedIn. I know not everybody is there, but I do a lot of content development on LinkedIn. I'm happy to consult in an informal way, meaning like throw some ideas at me. I love talking about stuff. I do have a podcast that we are starting to kind of beef up the frequency. It was a passion project that turns out has a little loyal listening base. So to do something that I think super unique is I finally, because I am like a bit antisocial right now with social media, but I did start an Instagram account for it. It's called Playing Guilty, but it's an acronym PLYNGLTY. Now, the cool thing that I think I'm doing with this is all of my interviews, the images on this account are of the people I have interviewed that I respect a lot. And it points you in the direction of who they are and what they are doing. So my goal is to kind of create this like database of people that inspire me and be able to easily point people in the direction of the great things they are doing. So me, LinkedIn, inspiring guests, Playing Guilty. And then if, you know, I do own this company called Metabolic, and if that interests you, we're pretty easy to find.
Little metabolic.com, Metabolic on the Instagram. We'll put all those links in the show notes and whatnot. There we go. Brandon, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate all your time, but I know you're a busy guy. You got a lot of things going on.
Well, no problem. I was excited to do this, so thanks for having me.
Listeners, thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next one.
That's all we have for you today. If you have any questions or want to chat or interested in seeing what we're up to in between episodes, head over to Instagram and Facebook and follow @OakStrength. Also check us out at oakstrength.com. If you like this episode, please share it with someone who wants to live happy, healthy, and strong. If you really liked it, subscribe and review the Happy, Healthy, Strong podcast on iTunes or Spotify. Be sure to tune back in next week and remember to keep owning your health.